How much is a million? If 1 million kids climbed onto one another's shoulders, they would be taller than the tallest buildings, higher than the highest mountains, and farther up than airplanes can fly. If you wanted to count from 1 to 1 million, it would take you about 23 days. If a goldfish bowl were big enough for 1 million goldfish, it would be large enough to hold a whale. Presto, 100 stars. If this book had 1 million tiny stars, they would fill 70 pages. They're going to fly through all these stars. There you have 100,000 stars. If we take these 7 pages here, take the journey through 7 pages 10 times, then you would have 1 million stars. I'm going to put this up close so you can see how tiny those stars are. How big is 1 billion? If 1 billion kids made a human tower, they would stand up past the moon. If you sat down to count from 1 to 1 billion, you would be counting for 95 years. If you found a goldfish bowl large enough to hold 1 billion goldfish, it would be as big as a stadium. If this book had 1 billion tiny stars, its pages spread side by side would stretch almost 10 miles. How tremendous is 1 trillion? If 1 trillion kids stood on top of each other, they would reach way, way, way beyond the moon, beyond Mars and Jupiter too, and almost as far as Saturn's rings. If you wanted to count from 1 to 1 trillion, it would take you almost 200,000 years. If you put 1 trillion goldfish in a goldfish bowl, the bowl would have to be as big as a city harbor. If you put 1 trillion of our stars from this book onto a gigantic roll of paper, it would stretch all the way from New York to New Zealand. Whoa. So this page here, I'm not going to read it all to you, but it tells you how they came up with these calculations. So they figured that the average child is about 4 foot 8 inches. And that's for an average elementary school child, about 4 foot 8 inches. And the shoulders of a 4 foot 8 inch child is about 4 feet tall. So they used 4 feet to measure each child. For counting, they said, you know, the numbers at first are really easy. 1, 2, 3, they go fast. But then you get into longer numbers like 69,828, and then you get 711,499. They have that number there. So as the numbers get bigger, it takes longer to say each number. So they did an average of 2 seconds per number to figure out how long it would take. For the goldfish, they said an aquarium should hold 1 gallon of water for every 1-inch goldfish. So 1 million goldfish will require 1 million gallons of water. So that's how they figured how much water would be required. And then for the tiny stars, they each of the stars in this book, each page had 108 across and 133 down. So that was about 14,364 stars per page. So they rounded that to 14,000. And, or they did times 7 pages, made 100,548 stars, and they rounded that to about 100,000 stars per page. So that's how they got those calculations. So those are some pretty big numbers out there. How many of you are going to try counting?